This podcast may contain discussions of graphic violence, unsettling themes, supernatural phenomena, and other topics that some listeners may find disturbing or triggering. Listener discretion is advised. This podcast is intended for entertainment purposes only. The opinions expressed are simply those of the individual hosts and do not represent the profession of psychology or constitute professional advice. Welcome back to the Secret Passage podcast. I am your host, Dana Vespoli, and with me as always is the inimitable Shannon Rogers.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Dana.
Hello. I stole that from the prosecutors. I love it when Brett comes up with these different descriptions of Alice.
I know, me too.
Yeah.
It's the best. I love them.
I know, me too. Oh, man. Well, we're back, everyone. Thank you for all the kind comments and reviews that you are leaving us. It means a lot. Also, thanks for some of the recommendations, namely from Jackie, who I still need to send you her recommendation for an episode. It's pretty brutal.
Ooh, there's also a listener who recommended what we're doing today.
Oh, really? So
yes.
I mean, that's fortuitous.
I know.
Because, yeah, we just happened to choose today's topic. But before we get into that, Shannon, did you happen down any interesting secret passages this past week?
I mean, yes, so many. The one I would like to talk about, and I'll just talk about it briefly, is I am going to try to break up with my phone. Not completely. Maybe not even. Breakup is not the right term, but you know the book that we were reading called
Yes.
How to Break Up with Your Phone. And that's what I'm gonna try to learn to moderate my phone usage, because it is having a terrible impact on our brains and our thinking and our attention spans. And I'm just tired of being a slave to my phone. And I was talking with someone who I'm mentoring. She's in a graduate program for psychology, and she's doing a whole project on how to break up with your phone. And she's basically has to create a program and put herself through the program. And she said that she's doing all the things like, people get an alarm clock or they get a watch, that you kind of do all the things that you can do to not depend on your phone the way we do, and sort of break that habit of using it for everything, like your alarm clock and your clock, watch, and everything. So that's my plan, and I'll report back on how it's going.
That's great. I mean, I can't deny everything is with my phone. I mean, I essentially work from my phone. Then I just lean into it all the time. So I'm eager for your input or your feedback as you go through this.
How about your secret passage?
I'm thinking right now. I'm recovering. Everyone, my kids, my twins started high school, and my oldest is in college now. So he's taking care of himself. But I'm doing that drop off, getting up early. It's intense.
It's such an intense adjustment to go back to school.
It is. I'm happy in some ways. I mean, there's something really nice about the drive after dropping them off, and I'm driving, and it's a beautiful stretch of road that I drive on. And that's when I usually pray. So I get a good 30 minutes of prayer in as I'm driving, and the sun is shining, and I'm just seeing people and the trees, and I'm very fortunate to live where I do. But it's the physical kind of like, it's a different headspace that I'm in, because I'm also like constantly, and this plays into a little bit of what our topic is today. I'm constantly thinking about them. I'm constantly thinking about school. I'm constantly thinking about everything I'm kind of seeing just through the drop off. Also the evolution of me being a high school. I went to school in Oregon. So I went to this very like brick building, 4 floors. It was the 80s and 90s. It's just so funny to be in Southern California and just looking at how everything looks different, you know.
Mhm.
But that's not my secret passage. My secret passage is, and it's not, okay, so I saw this movie a couple weeks ago. I may have already told you about it. It came up again because I recommended it to Caden Cross. Um, and it is my favorite movie I've seen this year. We'll see how I feel after Begonia comes out, because I am a huge Yorgos Lanthimos fan and a Jesse Plemons fan, and he's in that movie. But it's this movie called Sorry Baby that I
Mm.
saw. Oh, man. It's an amazing, incredible movie. It's another example of these smaller independent movies that don't have a lot in terms of, you know, special effects. That's not a thriller, it's not a mystery, it's not this thing that is like just, you know, an endorphin rush movie at all. It's a quiet movie. It's darkly funny. It's the way I described it to Caden was it manages to be both heartbreaking and life affirming at the same
Mhm.
time. It's
Mhm.
an amazing movie.
Mm.
I was bawling, and I found myself crying at interesting, like, there were two moments where I like cried the most, and one of them was such an I mean, the woman, it's her directorial debut. She wrote it, she directed it, she stars in it, and with Lucas Hedges. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a great
Mm-mm.
actor. He did you happen to see the movie Manchester by the Sea? Fucking amazing movie. Casey Affleck won Best Actor for that.
Oh, wait,
Um,
maybe I did. I don't watch movies anymore. I only watch horror movies.
well, Manchester by the Sea came out a long time ago. It
Yeah,
came
I
out
think
in
I
like
saw it.
2014 or 2015.
Mhm, mhm,
It's a hard. I never want to see it again. I mean, it's an
mhm.
incredible movie, incredible acting. I just don't ever fucking want to see it again because it just destroyed me. But Lucas Hedges plays a teenage boy in that movie. He was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, I think. Great actor. He's in this movie in Sorry Baby. Um, he plays a great character in it. But it's a beautiful movie. If anyone is interested in watching it, it's I love to give any kind of attention, shout out, props to like the artists out there that are doing stuff that I think is a lot more challenging and riskier, which is doing something that it doesn't like just, I don't know, seduce you with big explosions or like crazy
Mhm,
violence or lots of sex or lots of,
mhm.
you know, all that shit. It's a very, it feels very personal. I wouldn't be surprised if I mean, it has to be. I don't know much about this woman
Mm.
that made it, but anyway,
Mm.
amazing movie. It's called Sorry Baby. It's funny because the poster for it is the main actress, and she's like holding a kitten and looking at it. And of course, the minute I see that, I'm like, that cat, that nothing can happen to the cat. I can't watch it if something happens. I wasn't the only one. So I Google it, and a bunch of people are like, please tell me nothing happens to the cat. I can't watch this movie if
Yes.
something happens to the cat. And I'm like, I will watch people be dismembered and you know, all this stuff, anything with
Yeah.
animals and little kids. But for some reason, especially like just little animals, I'm like,
No, I know.
yeah,
Yeah.
that.
Like the Travis Decker situation when I heard about, how he murdered all his kids, my first thought was like, "What happened to the dog?" Right? His
Oh,
dog was
yes.
with him. Yeah.
We did. I don't think anything happened to the dog. I
No,
don't
I
know
think
that
the dog
the dog's
well,
somewhere else, right? Well, we would have
they
heard
found
like,
it.
yeah, we would have heard that he also killed his dog. I feel like that's something that they would say because the dog would have, if the dog was with him, you know, it's that thing too of like, or they would have said like he disappeared with his dog, you know,
Mhm.
like they would have said, have you seen a man in this kind of a dog?
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so anyway, that was my secret passage. I was like thinking about it. It's such a powerful movie too, because like I was thinking about it yesterday. I got choked up thinking about, I'm like, fuck, what's going on?
Oh my god, it's so hard for me to give myself over to those kinds of movies because I know they're gonna evoke that feeling, and I'm like, "No."
But
Like,
it's
yep.
that amazing thing. It's a
Mhm.
testament to this woman's talent as a writer,
Mhm.
and a director and an actor, that she managed to create something that simultaneously breaks your heart, but also makes you believe in people, that makes you
Mhm.
believe in other people. Like, I'm like, it's a hard task. Usually it's one or the other, right?
Yeah, these
But to,
Columbine boys could have used some of that influence in their lives.
oh yeah. So yeah, on to Columbine. On to Columbine. And listeners may be wondering why this subject. I have been well, having high school age kids makes me think more and more, as my kids have grown, in the whole, school shooting, I guess, phenomenon, brings these thoughts about. We always go back. Columbine is kind of like that big, horrible, tragic moment. I mean, it is one of the largest, um, school shooting tragedies in our nation's history, as I understand it. Right? That's the one we go to when
It
we
wasn't
think
the
about
f Yeah, it wasn't, like, the first of that era, but it was,
the largest.
and it was also the most dramatic, like, it was very theatrical, but also, because of what the way they did it and
The way
his
they did it, the explosions, there were bombs as well as, guns.
and the trench coat stuff and, but the it's interesting because last night I went through I asked Grok, like, about the whole entire history of school shootings in America, and it's wild. I don't remember the exact details, but 1754 was the first one. Lots of teachers would get shot because they would, like, punish the kids, and then the kids would get pissed off and come back and shoot them, or that, someone's brother was punished by a teacher.
Right.
And then there was, like, a massacre at a school, but that was more about, like, Native Americans and the settlers, like, colonial times. But it's like there is a huge chunk of school shootings in a certain era, starting in the 90s to the early 2000s. And then since then, it hasn't. I think there haven't been as many, but there's so many in that time period, and, like, lots of copycats.
Sure.
And what I learned too is that, like, the FBI actually encourages, and you probably know this, but the FBI actually encourages the media not to do national coverage of mass killings because when they do, inevitably 2 weeks later there will be another one, which is
Sure.
so wild. Anyway, yeah.
All right. So, to get into this, guys, to refresh everyone's memory, about Columbine and the timeline, and for those who, don't know much about it, or don't know about it at all, here's the summary and the timeline, and then we'll get into discussion. So the Columbine High School massacre occurred on April 20th, 1999, in Littleton, Colorado. It was carried out by two high school seniors, Eric Harris, who was 18, and Dylan Klebold, who was 17, almost 18 at the time. They killed 12 students and one teacher, wounded 21 other folks, and then took their own lives. The attack involved firearms and improvised explosives. It is remembered as one of the deadliest school shootings in U.S. history, sparking national discussions on gun violence, bullying, and mental health. And of course, this event profoundly impacted school safety protocols worldwide, which I'll get into as well, being a parent and being fully cognizant of the types of protocols they have in place. So, early morning on April 20th, 1999, before 11 a.m., Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold arrived at Columbine High School separately. They planted two propane bombs in duffel bags in the school cafeteria, and that was set to detonate at 11:17 a.m. and was intended to cause mass casualties and divert emergency responders, so that people fleeing from the explosives. The explosion would be essentially picked off by Harris and Klebold as they, were positioned outside. That was the plan. At 11:10 a.m., Harris and Klebold parked their cars in the school lot. They armed themselves with guns, so two shotguns, a carbine rifle, and a TEC-9 pistol, and homemade bombs, and they prepare for the attack. At 11:19 a.m., the shooting begins outside the school. Harris and Klebold opened fire on students near the west entrance. This was a huge school, by the way, killing Rachel Scott, who was 17, and injuring Richard Castaldo. They continued firing at students who were fleeing the area. At 11:22 a.m., they entered the school through the west doors, throwing pipe bombs and shooting in the hallways. Daniel Rohrbaugh, 15, was killed outside. 11:24 a.m., teacher Dave Sanders is shot while helping students escape. He later died from his injuries. 11:29 a.m., the pair enters the school library where most of the fatalities occurred. Over the next 78 minutes, they taunted and shot students hiding under tables, killing 10 people. Cassie Bernal, 17, Stephen Kernout, 14, Corey DePuter, 17, Kelly Fleming, 16, Matthew Kechter, 16, Daniel Mauser, 15, Isaiah Scholes, 18, John Tomlin, 16, Lauren Townsend, 18, and Kyle Velasquez, 16. Teacher Patty Nielsen was injured but survived. At 11:35 a.m., Harris and Klebold, they leave the library after exchanging fire with police outside. They wander the halls, attempting to detonate more bombs, but most fail. 11:44 a.m., they return to the library where they continue sporadic shooting and try to ignite a bomb. 12:08 p.m., Harris and Klebold commit suicide in the library. The active shooting phase ends, but SWAT teams enter later to secure the building and evacuate survivors. In the afternoon, so after 12 p.m., the police fully clear the school by about 4 p.m. The failed cafeteria bombs are discovered and safely detonated. Investigations reveal the attackers' journals and videos planning a larger scale attack inspired by events like the Oklahoma City bombing. And so that's essentially those are the facts of the case as described or as shared by survivors and um, different people involved. Sorry, I'm like looking to make sure my dogs aren't up to anything. Um,
They heard
hopefully,
something.
hopefully the sound is okay, guys. I have the AC on just because otherwise I'm going to die.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But so yeah, Shannon, you and we already knew each other. We were friends when this event happened. I remember the interrupted news broadcast about this, and I remember you telling me, "Oh, that's the same town that Andy Borger's from,
Mm-hmm.
right?"
Mm-hmm.
Um, what did you think when you heard about it?
God, this is so interesting. What year was 9/11? 2000?
2001.
Okay, and this was 1999.
Yes.
So this was my totally self-centered, like white knuckling it through life time period.
Right.
This is before I actually think that I turned my attention to like the global world, like the world outside of my little personal world. Because I was this when I heard about this and when I heard about 9/11, I feel like I under responded. Like I was focused on my boyfriend and my friends and getting done with call. I think I was graduating or I graduated already. But yeah, I just did not impact me at the time. I didn't really I thought it was weird and awful but I remember thinking it was kind of like emo kids, just angry emo kids, and it was very much like the movies of the time. I remember thinking about Natural Born Killers and Thelma and Louise, and like it just had that sort of 90s nihilism kind of thing. But that's really it. That I was so focused on my little tiny world at the time, I didn't really even think much about it. I knew nothing about this until we started, and except for the rough outlines, like the trench coat mafia thing, angry, depressed kids. It was very general. Now I feel like I finally know about it. How about you?
That's also a lot of like the way that the media portrayed it.
Hmm.
It was very, I mean, that's the problem with a documentary like Bowling for Columbine. And like the kind of tricky thing about Michael Moore in general as a documentarian is there's usually a bias
Hmm.
involved and some like certain things kind of left out. But it was
Hmm.
like to say that these were simply misunderstood kids who, if they hadn't been bullied, would not have carried this out, I think is not accurate. Especially when you look at, and when we later on when we discuss more the psychology of Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold and how complicated that relationship was, because certainly looking at the relationship between the two boys, they were not
Hmm.
even similar in
Hmm.
their personalities, and
They
that
were a
come
perfect match made in hell, but
it was a
yeah.
match made in
Hmm.
hell.
Hmm.
If it hadn't been Dylan, it would have been someone else, I'm convinced.
Yeah.
But to say simply that, all Eric Harris needed was a kind shoulder to lean on and an ear, is like the kid was absolutely terrifying and
Yeah.
extremely dangerous, very
Yes.
dangerous
He was like an
before
Eddie
this.
Haskell. From like Leave It to Beaver. Remember Eddie Haskell? He was like the kid who would come over. He was really nice to the parents, but he was awful.
Yeah.
That's what Eric Harris reminds me of. Yeah, like a psychopath. I mean, people are saying he's a psychopath. Yeah.
Psychopath and
Hmm.
a narcissist with grandiose narcissism, seeing himself as God, and
Hmm.
just one piece of bad news away from destroying what
Hmm.
ended up happening, like the school. And Dylan was a little more. Um, and Dylan had a future that keeps coming up. So I read this book by Randy Brown, who is the father of Brooks Brown. Brooks
Hmm.
Brown was a friend of Dylan Klebold's, and it's an interesting book. He's not a writer, right? So it's you're really feeling the raw emotion coming through. These are his journals
Hmm.
around that time, and um, it's interesting when you see how the police department absolutely fucking dropped the ball, how the high school dropped the ball. This was not something that happened out of nowhere. This
Oh
was
God, no.
absolutely preventable. But like every kind of authority figure that the Brown family like desperately reached out to for help just completely turned the other way. And for a solid year before the massacre took place, the Brown family, they called the police. They said, listen, this kid Eric Harris is threatening our family, like threatening our family. He broke the windshield on our son's car. There's a website with threats on it. They are making bombs. They are making pipe bombs and setting them off. Like, please do something. And the police took down the information and did absolutely nothing. So the Brown family, they reported to police, and Randy Brown like makes the point. He keeps saying like, we were risking our lives and our son's lives to tell the police this. Like, we're risking our lives to
Yeah.
do this because there was this kind of foreshadowing, something really fucking bad is going to happen if this isn't managed. And then what's interesting is later on the police denied that they ever called them. They denied that reports took place, and Randy Brown is like, what like, it's that mind
Yeah.
blown moment of like, wait, you were supposed to be the good guys and
They
they
t-
were saving face,
yeah,
you
and they
know?
told they told the Browns that they had enough information to follow up
Yeah.
too. And then deny the whole thing. I mean, there's the failure of the police, and there's also the failure of Eric's parents. They found a bomb in his room and they didn't do anything with it because they didn't want to detonate it. And they didn't want to if they reported it, he would have gotten busted. So they just kept it in their room. Yeah. And
Denial.
I
Holy
mean,
shit.
seriously. And so I know
Yeah.
we can get into more of that, but yeah, I mean, his dad was keeping a notebook full of his kids' behavioral issues listed there. So it's not like there weren't signs. A year before, this is when they started planning it, when they got busted for breaking into that van.
Van.
And then they had to go to that diversion program, and they were so angry, right? They were like grievance babies. They were so angry that this is where they got the like grandiose godlike stuff. They were like these sort of victimized godlike figures that were going to, their wrath was going to be godlike. And that's where it all started, was that I think they were pissed off because they got put into that diversion program. And it seems like that's when they first started to like plan this thing. Anyway,
Yes. Yes.
but we can.
So funny enough, when I heard about the thing, I think it's worth mentioning too, it was 1999.
Mhm.
We didn't have the media saturation that we have now. We didn't
Mhm.
have cell phones that did anything. I mean, we had cell phones where there wasn't even texting yet. I mean, that's like, if you're going to be watching anything, it was going to be on your television. Cable was king. Like people were still watching network TV and also cable television. So like news would come on, you'd hear about it. But if you left your house, you didn't, people would be talking. Maybe if you went into like a bar or something where the TV was on, you'd hear it. But like you weren't, we weren't hit with it as much. So we
Mhm.
were able to have some space from it. I remember thinking, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And that wasn't anything that I ever even worried about or thought about when I was in high school,
Yeah.
and high school still wasn't that far away. It was 1999. I graduated in 91.
Mhm.
Um, and I just remember like having some emotional distance from it and just thinking that was crazy.
Mhm.
But I remember that like after that, the school shooting that really fucking got to me was Sandy Hook,
Mhm.
because I had elementary school age children, like here we go,
Yeah.
fast forward now, um, and to 2012. I think it was 2012. It was near Christmas time
Mhm.
when this happened. And I remember that I was in San Francisco because I had gone to San Francisco to work for kink.com when they were still based in San Francisco in the Armory in the Mission District. And I remember being there, or I think my plane landed in Oakland, and on the way to the Armory, I was seeing the news flashes, and I remember feeling this intense anxiety because
Mhm.
I was away from home and my kids were at home. They were safe. I mean, school was over, but it was just this recognition of like that, how things can happen. Like, and so it was terrifying. And then just the awareness
Mhm.
that like, this is a thing, these things, these things fucking happen, and it feels like you have no control. And then to a degree we don't, we
Right.
can have protocols in place, and thank goodness for that. Thank goodness for that. There are lockdown drills now.
Yeah.
um, my oldest Adam, there was a lockdown drill, not a lockdown drill, there was a school lockdown last year.
Mhm.
And I just remember him, because again, we all have phones. He was texting me, "Hey, we're okay. Just letting you know there's a lockdown drill." I was also getting alerts from the school. Like that's a thing now.
Mhm.
If there's anything that happens, the
Mhm.
school alerts.
Mhm.
And I think it's because of situations like Columbine and Sandy Hook and things like that. Although I'm not sure again, I didn't look at Sandy Hook again. It's been a long time since I've like looked in any kind of detail at that, at how that went down, only looking at Columbine. But there are systems in place now. There's a heavy police presence near the school. I don't know if it's because we're so close to the sheriff's department or the sheriff's station, but
Mhm.
there's a security. You can't get into the school without a student ID. Like all kinds of things. There's a lot of barriers before you can actually I guess, successfully pull anything off to any kind of serious degree.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just kind of went off on a tangent there. It's a fucking heavy topic, but I guess what I really get out of this case is this didn't come out of nowhere. This wasn't sudden, and it's not even just that there were red flags. There were like actual fucking credible threats being made for a long time before this happened.
Yeah. I mean, so Dietz, Park Dietz. He's this
Park
guy.
dates.
He's like a forensic psychiatrist guy, and
Okay.
he has like he does a lot of work on like mass murders,
Yeah.
and the signs. I mean, I think that's essentially like what we what's really compelling about this case is like what it would take to prevent this in the future is people recognizing what's the signs and responding to them. And that just did not happen. But Park Dietz has this great list of things that you see ahead of these kinds of and it's textbook. When you look at his list, I'll read you some of it.
Okay.
Okay, so the warning signs of mass murder. So basically, I mean, they're not like he's said a lot about this subject, and so I'm just going to go through just a couple. Fascination with violence or weapons, grievance or resentment, planning and preparation, desire for fame and notoriety, social isolation or alienation, dehumanization of targets, mental health issues, triggering events, expression of violent intent, and lack of inhibiting factors. So, like absence of stabilizing influences. So you basically have all of them in this
Right.
case, and it was just seems like a complete failure of the system. And you had because you had people going and talking to law enforcement about it. You had the kids already being arrested and charged with 3 felonies for breaking into that truck. You had, so you have this like criminal history already, um, making of pipe bombs. That movie they made, the Hitman movie that everybody shows clips from in the documentaries, was a school project based on a story that one of them had written, and it's a movie about hiring hitmen. Um, Eric was going to class and saying things like, I have this dream that I keep, over and over again. I just keep having it where I come to the school and I shoot the whole school up, and in the end, I blow it up." And nobody did anything. One teacher actually reported, wanted to talk to Dylan's parents after he wrote an essay about a hitman
That
that
was
comes.
very, very, very violent, and
Yeah.
it went nowhere.
Right. It's just, it reminds me of the Gabriel Fernandez thing. Like,
Yes, yes. That like how many times can we fucking report this
yeah,
before the inevitable happens? Like,
yeah,
um, yeah, that was a thing in Randy Brown's book that he brings up too. Is that what's interesting is that they were such good friends with the Klebolds.
yeah.
So Sue Klebold wrote A Mother's Reckoning, where she talks about being essentially the mother of a school shooter, and all of this stuff, and some of the criticisms are that of course it's going to be heavily biased. She seems to put all the blame on Eric Harris, and
Mm.
Dylan was misunderstood, he was this, he was that, Eric is the one that did all of this stuff. But then at the same time you see her kind of acknowledge, like, Dylan did kill people, Dylan did do these things.
Yes.
And then she kind of like goes back into this thing of like, but what's interesting is the Browns also have the hardest time reconciling Dylan's involvement, and Randy just keeps trying to come up with these different scenarios of like, well, maybe it was this, maybe Dylan's life was threatened, maybe but then he says, like, but then one of the students heard Dylan say, hey, we haven't killed anyone with a knife yet, like, should we do that next?
So with the dyadic killers, right, there's usually one that's dominant and one that's strong and one that's weak. And I mean, to me, I just think of it like they're in a cult, basically. They're a cult, the two of them. And they just got together and reinforced each other's terrible ideas and pumped each other up. And that's what happened. I mean, I feel like, it's like any kind of the way people's minds get shifted when they get recruited into a certain ideology. But they had this like shared toxic ideology that I think they just reinforced for each other. There must have been there's something really compelling about that for both of them. One, Eric homicidal, Dylan suicidal, but you know, it's almost like two sides of the same coin. I mean,
Yeah, it's interesting. That was one thing that Randy Brown brings up is that with Dylan, um, Dylan was sensitive,
mhm,
right? Dylan had a future. Dylan had gotten into University of Arizona. He was going to college. He was very bright. Um, he went to prom. He felt feelings of love and attraction. He uh, was warm. All of these things that Eric just never exhibited. Being like an artistic type, like Dylan was, and I think also having probably hating Columbine High School was apparently just a very awful school where they the sports teams were very exclusive. They made it really hard for new people to even stand a chance. He was unhappy at Columbine, and everyone was, right. This is the thing where it's not as though Dylan and Eric didn't have friends. Like they had friends. They had their like group that they ran with. In the same way that the jocks had their group that they ran with, and these different groups, like they were part of something. It wasn't like they were both just alone and picked on. They did their own bullying, as much as they were bullied. But the way that Columbine High School was structured, sports teams were favored. Eric was rejected from the baseball team, so therein it lies another kind of uh, problem that I helped kind of move Eric along in this kind of trajectory towards just destruction.
it's a
Um,
narcissistic wound.
yes.
Mhm.
So he was rejected from playing sports, but the system was set up to reject anyone that the coaches didn't already have in mind. The football players, a lot of them, there were a lot of these like big shot, athletes that were beating up their girlfriends in school in front of staff. The principal was an absolute failure. Chose to ignore anything. A football player does something fucked up, he's still playing the game. There was no one was punished,
Mm.
and so you see this strong kind of this current of abuse and misogyny of these girlfriends. I mean, don't even get me started on that with like these young women getting that kind of messaging that early on, that they can get beaten up and treated like shit and it's okay. But so you've got a school that's run this way
Mhm.
where yeah, there it was such a toxic environment, and it bred that kind of resentment and anger and rage on top of someone who is exhibiting all kinds of like psychopathic traits.
Well, yeah.
um
It's like the only people worthy of protection are the jocks.
yeah, who are
Mhm.
and stuff. And Randy Brown makes a good point. He goes, who's fucking responsible for partially responsible too are the parents of these asshole spoiled brat kids, that are like going to school and picking on people, and then picking on somebody. Like, I mean, talk about poking a bear.
They
They're
had
they're
a
like,
cup they had a cup of, human feces thrown at them, Dylan and Eric. Like that stuff like that would happen there, which is like a health hazard
Yeah.
and also humiliating. And, it's interesting because Brooks Brown at one point in one documentary I watched said something like they were the bottom of the bottom. Like we were the bottom. They
Yeah.
were the bottom of the bottom. But it did seem like they were also functional. Like Eric had dates with women, I guess,
Hmm.
girls, I guess,
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
like this. They were like part of the like outcast crew, but
Sure.
there was a bunch of them, so they did have friends, um, right? And so we're somewhat functional, but we're also we're taunted, and
Sure.
yeah,
But
which
so were a lot of other people that
yeah,
didn't blow up this fucking school.
exactly.
I just hate that this, when people try to, think in absolutes, and it's like, oh, they did this because they were bullied. And I'm like, no. I mean, I think it played a part, but you
Yeah,
know, let's like a lot of, this was also a case of like, there were some kids who did nothing wrong. Most of the kids, I mean, I think all of the kids didn't, they weren't the ones that were bullying. They
they
were
wanted to
just
kill
kids.
everyone.
Yeah.
They wanted to kill. They would have bombed the entire city of Denver, but they didn't have the means. Like they were
Right.
that destructive.
They were
And
angry at the like it was a thing where
mhm.
they were mad at snooty people, they were mad at rich people, they were mad at like the all this stuff, but they were also from semi affluent. I mean, it's not like they came from poverty, right?
No,
They were doing just fine, financially, but it was raging against anything that they saw as elite, I suppose, you know.
mhm.
But this was also a bid to be famous. It was just, if they had to choose between Columbine High School and the city of Denver, and they had the means, they would have chosen the city of Denver and left Columbine alone,
That's what their
probably.
journals said. I mean, their journals
Yeah.
were like they wanted to kill everyone. It was like the
Yeah.
most misanthropic. But the interesting thing is like back to the whole like so invisible. I feel like invisibility is so painful for us humans. I know I have a particular hang up about being invisible. Um, it's very painful. And to think, I think like they traded that for like being visible and being well known for something bad. That to them was better than what they were currently. So that like speaks to the grandiosity piece of, right? Like I am God. Like the shirts they wore that day, Eric was wearing natural selection on his shirt because he was obsessed with natural selection. And then Dylan was wearing wrath on his t-shirt. So there's something about like we are the oppressed victims, but we are godlike and will crush you. It's like this power, this thing about having power and control, and and I know how cathartic that could be if you feel invisible and you feel small and you feel hated and you feel ridiculed. Um, but I don't. I That's where get to like a lot of people feel that way. It's when they came together and created their little cult that they fomented and sort of like chewed on and escalated all this stuff, right? If you didn't have a partner, you'd probably like peter out, like right.
There's something so there's a lot of information in the shirts that they wore, with Eric
Mhm.
wearing natural selection, because that is more of like that speaks to more of like almost an ideological bent. Wrath on Dylan is like the poet. It's the feeling. It's the
Yes.
feeling. So
Yes.
you've got like the mental, the belief, the hardened kind of narcissistic belief, like
Mhm.
I am God, natural selection, talking about Darwin, only the fittest survive. Only I make the decisions here. Like you've got Eric, and you've got Dylan, who's just wrath. It's just, I'm
Yeah.
just angry. I
Yep.
just have feelings, you
Yes.
know. Um, but also, this kind of brings to mind, I was thinking about this last night before I went to sleep. So I had really fucked up dreams. But, and I think back to our Vietnam episode that we did on like the My Lai massacre and like the mindset of military and soldiers. and how there's an indoctrination that has to happen so that people can actually carry out these.
Yes.
You make a monster, you create a monster. I feel like Eric created a monster in Dylan. I think
Mm.
that Dylan, who again was someone who was about to leave, Randy Brown keeps bringing that up. Like Eric is dealing with, he was
Mhm.
rejected from playing sports in high school.
Mhm.
Just a few days before the massacre, he was he was denied. He couldn't be, the Marines wouldn't let him enlist because he was on medication for depression and obsessive compulsive disorder. So
Mhm.
he was, there's the rejection of going
Mm.
into the military. Imagine him in the military. I'm sorry. Man, he
I
would have loved
know.
it.
Yeah.
But so you have that, and then the knowledge that Dylan was accepted to a university and was set to go away to college.
Yeah.
Um, it's that it's that kind of recognition, I think, even on Eric's part, that Dylan wasn't like him. So he wanted to make Dylan like him. And I think, I don't want to, brainwash is too strong a word. And that also, I'm acting as though Dylan had no agency. And he did some pretty fucking awful and shocking things that day of the massacre, from suggesting knifing people, which is such a personal act, I think, to knife someone versus
Yeah.
stand at a distance and shoot. But he also was the one that said some really fucked up racial slurs to Isaiah Shoals, the black kid that was killed in the library. I mean, the
Ugh.
last thing that this
Yeah.
kid heard was
Oh,
racial hatred directed at him, and then he was killed. Like,
it breaks my heart. The guy who lived, who was sandwiched between him and the other guy they killed, and he just pretended he was dead. And he's like, those were his friends, and he could hear Isaiah and the other guy, the other kid, just breathing their last breaths as he was waiting for help to come.
yeah,
Just so awful. What
yeah,
it's so awful. Yeah, and they were calling people stupid. It's so childish. Like Tim was watching one of the documentaries with me and he was laughing because, well, I guess they were checking their language because they were making that Hitman movie for a school project. So they couldn't
right,
curse.
right,
But we were laughing because it was so violent, but they couldn't curse. So they said words like, darn it, or you know,
right.
and even the insults that they were delivering for some of those students had this edge of like, they were so childish, like Four Eyes. He called somebody Four Eyes before he shot him.
There were a few things that were said that were, yeah, just like,
Innocent 1950s kind of.
yeah, like their kind of, their vernacular
Mhm.
was, it's almost as though they weren't actually killing these people, like like
Yes.
it just didn't, it didn't it didn't make sense, like you
Four
guys
Eyes.
know, yeah, you know that you're saying that, right, as you're wielding this terrifying weapon and killing people, you're like, it, there was such a disconnect there. But
Yeah.
but anyway, yeah, so like, Dylan, it speaks to, and again, I could be way off, but there's something that reminds me of, like, the drill sergeant, boot camp just prior to, these soldiers being deployed to fucking Vietnam to kill people, are being told, like, kill, 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 the bayonet, like,
Yeah.
in the chest, in the, like do this, do that, do this, do that, like these repeated things. And it's just, Dylan was, of course, and again, this reminds me of, like, when we talk about the underdeveloped teenage brain,
Yeah.
where Dylan is of course he's pissed, of course he doesn't like to get picked on, of course he's dealing with just an uncertain future, he's a teenager, he's got all these things going on. For whatever reason, there's something seductive about Eric Harris's certainty, because I feel like there was such a certainty to the way that Eric spoke, like in his journals.
The
And I'm just
clarity.
imagining him, like, looking at Dylan and saying, this is the way it is. This is who you are. This is who we are. we, like we are gods. We are doing this. And
They're bonded.
they're bonded. And again, Dylan is not, he's of course dealing with his own mental health issues. He's depressed. He deals with suicidal ideation, but it's like the worst possible thing that could have happened was him becoming such good friends with someone like Eric Harris,
I
you know.
know. It's really true, who you hang out with
You know,
really
your
determine.
peers are everything. There's like actual, like there's science behind it. Like
Yeah.
the people that have the greatest influence on your children, it's not the family, it's their friends, which is why it's so important. And why the Browns were warning Sue Klebold. They were like, hey, you got to keep Dylan away from Eric Harris. And then in the book, Randy Brown writes, she didn't listen.
Yeah.
She didn't listen. She did,
I don't think she saw. I mean, it's interesting. It's that people think depression. I'll just my little pitch here. I feel like depression is sort of misunderstood sometimes. So, like, I think a lot of the reason for depression is environmental and behavioral. And there are, I think, cases where there's like a biological situation happening. But I think more often than not, it's like we live in a depressogenic world. We have a depressogenic lifestyle. But, part of depression, this is just from my own experience. I was talking to Joanne, my consultant, once about, I have this thing where I fear people being mad at me and being irritated with me. And we were talking about that and how a lot of that is that I live with a very cruel internal, hostile internal thing that's always telling me that I'm wrong, what I'm doing is not right, and I have a lot of hostility toward the world sometimes and other people. And depression looks like this thing that's like self-hatred turned inward, but there's a lot of rage in there, I think, and hostility and like living with a hostile internal monologue. And it doesn't take much to shift that, to externalize it. And so I imagine for Dylan, this is just me speculating, that there was a lot of anger and turmoil in there and not a way to, didn't know how to deal with it. It looked very quiet, maybe to his parents, right? He's isolating. He's just being a moody teen. But what was simmering in there was far more toxic. And then he found this person who's normalizing, externalizing that kind of anger and blaming others instead of living with like, I'm bad. Something's wrong with me, right? No, actually, something's wrong with all of you, and we're going to kill you. There's something probably cathartic and relieving about that to take it.
right.
Yeah. Hmm.
And that is something that comes up, like Randy Brown asks over and over again, how could Dylan, say the thing about the knife, like let's do this, or how could Dylan say the dehumanizing thing to Isaiah Shoals? And again,
Hmm.
it's something that is like, there is, we've talked about this before also in the Vietnam episode, there's an arousal level that comes up when you are firing weapons, when you have already dehumanized everyone to be able to do the thing that you're doing,
Yeah.
right? At that point in the library, they were already so deep in that of course he's going to dehumanize, right? They already have that.
Yeah.
That's how you do what you do. um and so that's the disconnect. That's why we see, like, the vets coming back from Vietnam broken, because they had done these things that they had been trained to do, and then they come back and they try to reintegrate in, but they are so far gone. And I feel like at that point Dylan was already so far gone. And again, I am also speculating as far as like how to reconcile Dylan Klebold taking part in this massacre, when he had been, by all accounts, not just from Sue Klebold's, obviously very biased as a mother, claims about her son, but also the Browns, who are trying to
Yeah.
make sense of this, because all of them knew a different a different Dylan.
Well, this is where the contextual stuff comes in. It's like we are different in different contexts. And he was a fine, loving little kid, but you give him a year of this kind of weird fantasy stuff that he's doing with Eric and a year to be radicalized. I mean, it doesn't take long for,
More than a year to be radicalized.
yeah.
I feel like, I mean, that they met a lot earlier on. So it was, uh, he had years to kind of build up to this point and then just kind of like psh, go over the edge
But
with Eric.
I think that's both of them though, because I think it takes a special person to stay in that kind of relationship. Like I wouldn't have stayed in that relationship if somebody started talking to me about building, but they built like 23 bombs in 1 month together. Like I wouldn't, I'd get out of that. It would scare the shit out of me, no matter how depressed I was. And so yeah,
Yeah.
I think you have to be like, he must have been like primed to be part of this, culty, dangerous, like a lot of people, if somebody wanted to rob a van, I would be like, no way. Like,
I
you
see
know,
what you're saying. No, you're,
yeah.
yes,
So
yes,
there's something
yes.
about his own curiosity in there, or his own willingness to follow, which
Right.
might have been it.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe if it
Yeah.
wasn't Eric Harris, maybe he would have like gotten with the fucking Hare Krishnas. Like we don't know. Like
Yeah.
there are those people where you're like, man, that person right there.
Yeah.
You can sell. I got a bridge to sell you. Like how
Yeah.
are you not seeing this? How is this happening? Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah. Like,
Oh,
where's your moral compass? Yeah. Go ahead.
it's interesting that Brooks Brown was spared. I think it's worth
Oh,
mentioning that. Brooks Brown. So here's the thing too with the book. That's fucking wild. It is so worth reading. This book by Randy Brown about Columbine. His journals, because you're watching him deal with in kind of real, like a real time, because these are his journals, and then he'll like kind of go in and say, okay, this was written blah blah blah, this was going on. Because it's journals, you're going to get a lot of like stuff that feels like it's he's reiterating stuff, he's revisiting stuff,
hmm,
he's fantasizing about like, okay, what if it's this, what if this had
hmm,
happened instead. So there's a lot of that, but it's
hmm.
interesting because he himself deals with some suicidal ideation as the father of uh, you know, of Brooks and Aaron. Aaron escaped the school, um, and Brooks was told by Eric Harris, strangely enough, "Hey,
Yeah.
I like you. Get out of here." You know, um, and so like he runs, leaves, and then calls his dad. He's like, this thing happened, and then Aaron manages to get home, and they're
Mm.
okay. They're spared. Um, But even though his kids were spared, his kids were fine, they were alive. He found himself just wanting to die. Um, and then of course
Mm.
there's the mother of one of the victims who did kill. The mother killed herself like several months later.
Oh, wow. I didn't know about that. That's awful.
Yeah, her daughter, I want to say, was survived it, but was in a wheelchair, right? Um, and so you're watching just this grieving process, and how a family is reckoning with everything that happened. There's also survivor's guilt,
Hmm.
there's all of that. um but the thing that's fucking crazy is how the department and the school conspired against the Brown family. The department tried to say that Brooks was involved somehow.
Wow.
And so Randy Brown is like, what's amazing too is he becomes like Gavin DeBecker, who's kind of our hero, right? Like Gift of Fear and all of this stuff. Like what a fucking great guy. He just on his own, not getting paid anything, just wanted to help the Browns, checked in on them a year later, how are you doing, all of that.
Gavin
um
DeBecker did?
yes.
Oh my god. So he
Yeah.
wrote the just so people who don't know, he wrote the book The Gift of Fear.
which is such a great
True love.
book.
Wow.
But
Mm.
absolutely worth reading too. I should reread it again. I remember my mom recommended it to me after I graduated college because she's like, read this, because he's saying like, listen, generally speaking, things don't happen out of nowhere. Like there's usually signs. You need to learn how to read the signs.
Yeah.
Like there's almost always plenty of clear indicators that something's about to go down.
Hmm.
Um, but it's crazy. It scares me, because what happens when you do everything right? And the people that are in positions of authority and power don't help you. And then they're like, whoops, my bad. Well, let's just let's pin it on the kid that also reported to the police like, hey, these guys, like, they're my friends, but guess what? They're doing these things. There's this website which is all but spelling out what their plans are, and then the cops do nothing, realize they fucked up, and then claim that reports were never filed and somehow Brooks Brown must be involved. So then you've got like other people's parents that like putting Brooks in danger, right? Putting this family in further danger when they were just trying really hard to get Eric and Dylan behind bars and given help, you
Yeah.
know? Um,
Mm.
so
It's so
that
hard.
shit scares me.
Yeah. I mean, it's we have so little control over things in the world. And like, I guess the evidence sort of falling on deaf ears. There's something horrifying about that. Like the people that could do something about it didn't do anything about it, including the parents.
Yes.
Um, parents and then law enforcement. I don't know if that's a cultural thing. It's very interesting to think about like how we do and don't respond to threats. We're not very good at responding to threats that aren't immediate, imminent as humans. Like I still have no earthquake plan. But so I guess, looking at, but seeing that website, it
And
surprises
the
me.
bombs.
Well, exactly. Well, the parents were covering it up. The parent,
No, but
yeah.
Brooks Brown's parents like
Oh, I
reported the
know.
bombs
Yeah. I
and
know.
like where they were being detonated. They even spoke to the fucking bomb squad.
So that's
And
the
Randy
thing.
Brown is like, I can tell you what the room looked like that I went into in the department. Like, he's like, these guys, we weren't fucking lying. Like, what the fuck?
I think they really were just covering their asses.
They're
And
100% covering their asses.
but the thing about it is like that. I wonder about the culture. It's like, oh, a couple of like middle class white boys just getting into, but if they looked different, if they were from a
Mm-hmm.
different socioeconomic background,
Mm-hmm.
they may have taken action. But there is
Yeah.
this like kind of like old west kind of component to I was listening to an interview with Dave Cullen, the guy who wrote the other book, Columbine. Um, and he was saying that, yeah, there's just an element of like the city wasn't incorporated. They were relying on Littleton's, like the county police and the county fire. They didn't have any of their own services. And then there was like an old faction of people that lived there that had been there for hundreds of years. And then there was like new people that had never lived in the state before that moved in. And it was just a sprawling suburb. So I feel like there might have been some sort of sense of like, there's no real danger here because these kids are all, somewhat
White.
affluent and white. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So I don't know, but it's like, you would think that people would learn their lesson from this, but I know it's happened again and again and again where people aren't reading the signs. So I just think it's a matter of training. I think you really have to train people. I think you have to support people in taking that step, right? Like including parents, like I know your kid didn't like it when they were, arrested and charged with 3 felonies and put in a diversion program before, but you're going to have to do this to save people, like.
Yeah.
Just,
Also, your kid was fucking put in a diversion program.
yeah, get your kid some help.
Yeah. But, and then here's the thing is Eric was medicated and so was Dylan. But the dad, like, that is wild to me. You've got these two fathers. You've got Randy Brown writing in his journal the fact that he's scared about Eric and Dylan, and then trying to tell their friend the Klebolds, like, get Eric away from Dylan. Then you've got Eric's dad, who's like also writing in a journal and completely glossing over, I mean, the cognitive dissonance. Like,
Yeah.
I see that my kid is behaving strangely. He built a bomb. Ah,
Right.
he's just a little stinker. Like
I think
fuck.
these were quite. I think ultimately you could be cynical about this, or you could be like not cynical about it. And if you're not cynical, you could say, "This is all a fucking cry for help." A website where you talk about bomb making. I mean, so I feel like he was totally invisible to his parents. I mean, and actually, like maybe why he spared. This is me speculating. Why he spared Brooks Brown was because, I mean, Brooks Brown's family actually tried to corral him and contain him and, right?
Yeah.
And hold him accountable, and no one else did. And there's something.
There
Yeah.
no, there is something very,
Mhm.
very, that's a sign, because Eric went from threatening the Brown family's
Yeah.
lives, right? So he went from that. He had an ample opportunity to kill Brooks Brown right there. Like,
Yep.
he was gonna fucking shoot up the school anyway.
Yeah.
But he spared Brooks Brown, like you're saying, and I think you're onto something, which is, see, he spared Brooks Brown because Brooks Brown was the only one that fucking cared enough.
To fight back with to him and to confront him,
Yes.
and in a
To
real
see that
way.
what they were doing was wrong,
Yep.
right?
It's a form of neglect to not have boundaries with your kids and to not hold them accountable.
Yeah.
And I just think he was, I mean, getting away with everything, and that's to his detriment. I mean,
Yeah.
he's telling people at school he's having dreams about blowing the school up. He's making hitman videos. He's making a website about his pipe bombs. I mean, what more do you guys need?
Right. And Dylan straight up told Brooks, yeah, here's the website. Here's the website. You could say that that's code for tell your fucking parents, please. I'm too far gone here. And Brooks did. Um, I also want to add, because people may not know, but Eric and Dylan got their weapons illegally. They had a friend, a female friend, procure the weapons for them,
And then
because that's
somebody
never.
else sold them to him, some older
Yes.
kid. And then he
Yeah.
ended up going to jail for that.
Right.
Or getting,
So
yeah. Mhm.
yeah, it's a thing that I want to make a point to mention, because it's never mentioned in bowling. I don't think, it's not fair for me to say that, but I don't think that it's mentioned in Bowling for Columbine that they got their weapons illegally.
And they made the bombs
And they
out of
fucking made the bombs out of
household,
scratch.
yeah, household
Yeah.
objects and recipes from online. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's a scary thing. It reminds me a little bit of during, we had that situation with, where we were being threatened by these mentally disturbed neighbors, and it was during COVID, and the police were just not available. And that was the point at which I'm like, I can't rely on law enforcement to protect me.
yeah.
I'm gonna have to protect my own family. I'm gonna have to arm and defend myself.
Yes.
But it's things like this. It's like there's this imminent threat to the Brown family,
Yep.
and the police did nothing. It's just scary.
I think
It's
domestic
scary.
violence, like any domestic violence situation, it's like horrifying because you really can't be protected. You
Yeah,
have to,
right.
right? Like what good is a restraining order when it comes to a homicidal maniac who wants you dead?
100%. Like, we got like a permanent restraining order, and I'm like, that's cool. This person has made it very clear they're mentally ill and don't care about the law. Like, they have done this person had already 4 existing restraining orders from other people.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. So, like, that was some shit. Like, you start to realize how vulnerable, there's this kind of myth around, just call for help, call the police, and it's like, but what about when they don't, I mean, I'm lucky because I live in an area now with really good law enforcement. I didn't before, but but yeah, like it is that, and that's a good point. You know, with the Harrises and the Klebolds, you've got, you know, Eric Harris's dad was like former military, and you've got, you know, like they're all nice middle class white suburban people, and I don't know, like it's it's that thing of like the bombs, dude,
I
setting off
know.
bombs. That's Columbine, and it's interesting to kind of look back on it now. But yeah, you see all the time now, you know, there's lockdown drills that happen. There's
Jane had one at her school a couple years ago. It was really scary.
just a straight up lockdown.
Someone was there with a gun on her campus, and yeah, and they but we could text about it. It did. I mean, I think it really shaped, you know, these generational things shape our minds. You know, we were coming of age when shootings happened in movie theaters. I remember that came first, it seemed like. And then like Colors, when Colors was out,
Oh
remember?
yeah, yeah,
And but then this, so we didn't grow up with this, but like I said last time we were talking about this, there are younger people that I work with in my practice, and it left a mark on them. You know, it's an association they have, you know, school and violence, school and potential death, you know. So, you know, another friend of mine was about to enter high school when this happened. So as our generation, we came to it happened later in our lives, right? It didn't leave
right,
quite the same mark, but it definitely, as a parent, you know, it's in there as in the world of possibilities. And it's terrifying.
yeah.
Um,
One thing I will say that I appreciate now is bullying just isn't tolerated like within the schools, you know, the way that it once was.
oh my God.
Um, but I also really resent this idea that somehow bullying is what caused this to happen.
I think it was part of it,
It's
but
yeah, sure, like
but
it was, it didn't help, you know, it didn't help. But again, had they had the option of blowing up Denver and blowing up Columbine, I think they would have chosen Denver. You
yeah.
know, they would have chosen something on a larger scale.
If they had
Uh,
been socially successful, my guess is this wouldn't have happened. I think that it's that has that much of an influence on this kind of psychology. Like a lot of
yeah,
people, you know, right? Like if you're a grandiose narcissist, you're not going to like being the bottom of the bottom.
no,
um and you're not going to adjust to it really. And
right.
but yeah, I think it's a factor, but it's not like yeah, it's reductionist to say, you know, they did it cuz they were bullied, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a gross oversimplification, and it absolutely ignores like the massive mental health problems that Eric had and Dylan had, you know. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting to think like how would, you know, we I know we kind of talked about this a little bit with Paris Bennett. How would Eric's psychopathy have what, you know, have kind of played out had he also, I mean, he's another one that had a very disruptive childhood. He moved constantly and he didn't like it. He was constantly moved. He was constantly the new kid in every school. Finally they settled in Littleton, but that, you know, that didn't change the fact that he had to deal with this constant moving around.
I mean,
um
the jocks at the school were acting like psychopaths,
the
be
jocks at the school were fucking psychopaths. They just
beating their
happened to be
girlfriends.
successful.
Right.
Yeah,
And they just
yeah,
happen to have stable social worlds. And I mean, I think it's terribly, I would have probably cracked if I had been moved around like that as a kid.
yeah,
I would have seriously, for whatever reason, for me, the most important thing was having my social circle and stability around that, like as a kid. Um, so yeah, I mean, I just think of him as like a tumbleweed, like no roots, that nihilistic thing can totally take hold, I think,
Yeah.
probably, where you have to like start over from scratch over and over again. And you're just walking into this context that's so hostile most of the time. Like, I remember when new girls would come to my school, I'd be like, oh, I feel sorry for you, especially if you're pretty.
Right.
Like it was just, not a good thing to walk into this little insular community. And so, yeah. And right. So I think it's, I think it's massive that they had I don't know. I think it's massive. Like, if the social stuff, like if you can get someone a good, nice social group, I think it has a lot of positive impact in mitigating other things in childhood.
Right.
But who wants to hang out with a psychopath? So it makes sense that he wasn't really killing it with.
Well, no, who wants to hang out with a psychopath unless he had made the baseball team?
Exactly. Unless he was a
Yeah.
football player.
Yeah, unless he'd made one of those elite sports teams where he could then turn around and pick on and bully
His girlfriend.
his girlfriend, beat her up. It's fine. Go ahead, beat up your girlfriend. It's the principal thinks you're awesome because you're a jock.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's the thing. Like at school, one of the things that I notice is there's so much like that I appreciate is you can be like at the boys' school, like there are out gays and lesbians that are not getting picked on. You know what I mean? That was
Yeah.
something that, like, shit, if you weren't, well, no, that's not fair. I went to a performing arts high school. So like there were a lot of just people that it was like, be who you are. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
very fortunate in that way to go
Mm-hmm.
to like a school with theater kids and dancers and things like that. And no one cared if you were that. But I know in some of the other more traditional high schools, that was a problem.
Yeah.
If you fucking weren't wearing the right clothes, you were picked on.
Oh,
And so like, it's a cool thing because if you're a bully at the boys' school, like you're an asshole.
yeah.
And like there's a whole like
Yeah.
there's a whole wrestling team that'll fucking take your ass down if you're picking on somebody smaller than you. Like it's like they look down on that shit. Now again, there's other things going on that are not so great, but it's a thing where you can be a weirdo
Mm-hmm.
like Dylan Klebold or Eric Harris, go to a school now,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna find your people, you're gonna find your tribe,
Mm-hmm.
and no one's gonna pick on you because that means they're the fucking asshole. Now again, I can't speak for all high schools, but the ones that I'm most familiar with
Mm-hmm.
where I live, and again, I know we live on the West Coast, so it's a little different, like living in like the Los Angeles area or San Francisco or things like that. So I don't know how, maybe it's different in smaller towns, but
Well, I think the social norm, like, I mean, that's the thing about like shame and, like changing the norms is important. Somebody in one of the documentaries I was watching said something like, here's an idea. Like, make a school that people don't want to blow up. Like, make a school where the adults hold people accountable for their bad behavior, where people are friendly and welcoming and warm, and there isn't bullying. And that's the best tactic. Like,
no, there's like
yeah,
now there are like the zero tolerance
yeah,
policies around bullying.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so like that's helpful, you know. Oh, it's crazy. It's so weird to think back um on the something, an event like Columbine, and also just like thinking about the Browns and how their lives are forever changed, and this is just the Browns. This is the Browns who have children that were, that survived that. But like even just like how close it came, like Brooks Brown coming face to face with Eric Harris, who just happened to be like, hey, get out of here.
Ugh.
It could have gone another way. And I'm sure that Randy Brown and his wife Judy think about that all the fucking time. Like shit, everything could have changed, but also like, what more could we do? I know some people were mad at them and said, well, you should have told their parents. You should have told the Klebolds and the Harrises, that was going to happen. And Randy's like, and then have them like like try to protect the kids even more.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, what
yeah.
are the parents going to do? The parents are going to be like, please don't say anything. We'll handle it. And he goes, and then what? I'm going to believe them? You know? I had to go to the police because this was an imminent threat. And then the
Absolutely.
police didn't fucking do anything. But it's like it's like, it's the whataboutism, It's like, well, what about what about doing this instead? It's like, it's easy for you to say now
Yeah.
after everything has happened. But like, also Randy's like, you don't think that we fucking like, we're wringing our hands over how to deal with this,
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's interesting. It is it's not as simple as the media played it out to be.
Yeah.
And I'd be curious to know what Columbine is like now.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what it's like now. We should look it up and see.
I
Like,
think
what?
that the Browns and the Klebolds still live there.
Oh, really?
I think so. I think a lot of people stayed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I know that the Browns, like Aaron, I think Brooks graduated,
Mm-hmm.
but Aaron stayed. He had
Mm-hmm.
another couple years, and Randy was like,
Yeah.
okay, all right, man. you know,
I mean, yeah, well, at least it's like when a plane crash happens, you're like, I guess it's the perfect time to fly because everybody's on
right?
high alert. So it's like, now that that happened, maybe people will mind their, will be
Yeah,
aware.
right.
Uh, yeah. Ugh. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. I mean, I guess it's hard to know, is this a kid with an imagination? Is this an angry kid, writing stories about shooters and, just to work through their feelings? Or is this actually a threat? I don't know. It's like, it's so hard I can understand how it might be challenging to take that up as a sign on its own, like as a teacher, I think maybe if everyone was talking, it would have gone a lot better. Like if the police were talking to the teachers and the teachers were talking to the police and the parents were talking to the police and the teachers, and then everybody was comparing notes, they could maybe have put the picture together better.
I don't know, man. That website all but said,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah,
I don't know how much more. Like, I feel like in the case of Eric Harris, he all but walked around with a loud fucking megaphone saying, I am going to blow up the fucking school.
Pretty
Like, I
much.
don't know what more. I see that maybe if it had just been like writing stories or making video projects, if it had just been that, because there's always, the what do you call it, the guise of fiction and being creative, but
Hmm.
everything else, from
Yeah.
out and out telling students telling other people, and then bottom line is the Browns going to the cops and saying our lives have been threatened and
Hmm.
our sons' lives have been threatened, and they're detonating bombs. Please do something. They needed, especially with their record. They had a fucking criminal record already.
And they didn't follow up.
They never followed up.
See, that's the
They might
thing.
as well have thrown the
No,
report
I
in the
mean, the
trash.
parents didn't
Oh, the
too.
parents.
Like, part of me is like, if I made it, so I have had to make CPS reports before,
Right.
and I follow up. And mostly they're like, nope, sorry, we're not going to investigate. But uh, I can understand giving up on that too, thinking that they're going to take care of it, washing your hands of it, and kind of moving on. But I would pester people probably. If I was a teacher or a parent, I'd be like following up and being like,
I
what's
think they
happening?
had.
Oh,
I
okay.
think the Browns like it's
Mhm.
it's a matter of like the police seemed like they were taking it seriously at
Mhm.
first. They
Mhm.
even spoke to like the bomb squad people. It
Mm.
seemed like things were being taken seriously.
Mm.
And then so time went on, presumably life goes on and you don't notice, and then things start to crop up again.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing, because
Mhm.
the only thing they have to go on is that their lives aren't being disrupted anymore.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's crazy.
Yes, it is. Sad.
Um, anyway,
Anyway, gang.
so like on that note, oh, it's so
How do we
dark.
transition? What's a good transition out of this? Um, if you see
Um,
something, say something, folks.
yeah, that's all you can do, man. And then let us know your thoughts on Columbine. Maybe we have some listeners who were there during that time, you know, living nearby, or maybe they live there now, and how something like this kind of has transformed the community, if at all, you know. Um, and oh, I do have to say that there was, it was funny, kind of. Randy Brown was saying, like, he goes, I didn't know we were dealing with Keystone cops. I liked that. It was funny. It was like kind of a moment of just like, what, you know, just befuddled, like, what?
Yeah. No, seriously. Like gross incompetence. And by the way, didn't it take them 3 hours to get to the teacher who had been shot? I think it took them.
She dragged herself to, like, yes,
No,
yes,
the male teacher that died. He was alive for a long time. It took them like 3 hours to get to him. And when they
right,
got him out of there, he died. He could have lived if they would have.
yes,
But it was
yes.
like a labyrinth. I mean, they had to go room by room and clear each room. But you would think they would start somewhere bigger, like than each individual classroom. Like go to the library. You have
Yeah,
like
the
the
whole thing
911
was
operator.
completely fucked up.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
the whole thing. Like there was the teacher and the Patty,
yeah,
and the 911 operator. And I get it. 911 is only going based off of what they're hearing, but it was like help is on the way, and she sat there for three fucking hours, and then it wasn't even the SWAT team, police, paramedics, anything that got her out. It was like a fellow person that was in there that got her out.
Well,
So she just sat there and fucking waited.
Well, the crazy thing is that 911 operator, there was an open line and she could hear them shooting people and saying what they were saying. So they knew that this was happening in the library, but somehow the SWAT team didn't just go immediately to the library. Like it just blows my mind.
Yeah, no,
And
that's something that Randy Brown talks about, is
mm,
it wasn't just the cops' failure to do anything prior to this happening, but it was like the day of. It was the gross incompetence there on the fucking campus.
oh,
You know, but no, everyone wants to look like a fucking hero. You know, they just like, they don't want to put out, like, it's again this, there's, if I recall correctly, the media was acting as though these were heroic people. And it's like, no, the hero was the teacher that lost his life trying to save people. It
yeah,
was the students trying to keep each other safe. You know, it was the fucking teachers like calling 911, and it was the people that were in there,
yeah,
like just doing the best they could. Those are
mm,
the fucking heroes, you know. Um, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't like, this is not to say that there are some fucking good, like, cops and shit
oh yeah.
that do shit all the
Oh
time.
my God,
Like,
that
but
one school shooting, that one where they showed the like body cam where they just raced in there and were all bup, 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 and like found the person and like neutralized them, killed them.
oh, that was the Christian school. Yeah, dude,
Yes.
that body camp, that person, that cop, he's just like
Yeah. That's who
goes
I
in there.
want coming to get me if
Yeah,
I'm yeah, yeah.
yeah. Exactly. And there's a chance, like, it's just a funny thing. I'm like, when do you need a psychopath? You need a psychopath that is like not afraid and will just go in there and neutralize
Yeah.
the fucking enemy. Yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, I'd love to know people's thoughts. And yeah, you know, you don't have to agree with anything we say, but be respectful. You know, just that'd be awesome. And let us know your thoughts, if you've had any experiences, if you were in Columbine, or around Columbine when this happened, if you were impacted in any way. It's always very, very interesting and edifying when we have listeners like tell us, like, hey, actually,
Mhm.
I'm from that town. You know, this is my perspective on it. It's always helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Context. It's nice to adds context.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I would like to also say that if we choose to do an episode on what Jackie St. James sent me that I'm going to send to you, Shannon, I'd like to apologize in advance because it is fucking dark.
Let's end with that one because we're gonna do one more and then have our season end, right? 10 episodes. Does that
I
sound?
don't remember.
I think
We'll
10.
figure it
Let's
out.
do 10.
Okay. Okay.
Mama needs a break.
Mama needs a break. Yeah.
Mama's tired from all this podcasting.
But our Patreon will be alive and well.
Yes.
Well, because I want to, after this episode, if we can do the episode where we bring on Caden to discuss, like, our revisiting, like, the subject of the case against the sexual revolution. I think that would be great. I think that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, we could end with that one.
That's a good one to end with, I think.
And start with the gnarly one.
Yeah, because the other one is more. It's almost more like kind of philosophical, and I mean, it's a debate that just is going on and on about kind of the where we are as a society with regard to young women, misogyny, and sex work, and all of that. But before then, we'll talk about it. I don't know. I'm going to send you the thing and we'll see if we want to do one.
Okay.
Anyway, gang, thank you so much for listening. Please leave us a 5-star review. That would be really awesome. And thank you to those that have already. We really appreciate it. Thanks for your feedback. Please follow us on our Instagram at Secret Passage Podcast. We are on X at Secret Pass Pod. We have our Patreon. Please subscribe. We do have original content on there that we update weekly. And we would love to have like an open dialogue conversation in the Patreon as well. Please give us any episode ideas that you may have. Anything you'd like us to cover, we'd be happy to do it. And that is it.
That's it. Thanks
we
for
will
listening.
See you next week. Yes. Thank you so much, guys.